Humans have a way of romanticizing animals, think Free Willy and Mighty Joe Young, but we sometimes forget that getting too close can be risky. Predatory instincts can't be fully suppressed through captivity or extensive familiarization with humans. Ultimately, their behavior is unpredictable. Most animal attacks occur due to humans encroaching on the animal's territory as a result of provocation or simply reckless human behavior. For example, 35% of alligator attacks in Florida are the result of humans deliberately seeking to encounter them. Sometimes wildlife experts are too confident in their own abilities and don't take sufficient precautions, and sometimes people is just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Following are some of the most tragic examples of animals acting according to their nature. Check out these 10 very disturbing animal attacks. Only non-fatal animal attack to make it on the list. Charla Nash's stomach-churning injuries have become famous. February of 2009, the 55-year-old was in the cage of a 200-pound pet chimpanzee named Travis. Chimp was owned by her friend and employer Sandra Harold. Travis attacked Nash. Harold was unable to fight him off with a knife and called the police. In a recording of the 911 call, Harold can be heard screaming, "He's eating her." Police arrived at the scene. They shot Travis several times before he was subdued. By the time paramedics were able to treat her on the scene, Nash had sustained devastating injuries and was barely clinging to life. Hands, eyes, nose and lips were bitten off and eaten. Groundbreaking surgery, doctors successfully reattached her jaw and later performed a full face transplant, but she was permanently blinded and disfigured by the attack. Travis had shown signs of disturbing behavior prior to the attack and was on medication for Lyme disease that may have caused aggression. He was found dead near his cage the next morning. Remains of Timothy Treadwell and his girlfriend Amy Huguenard were found in the Katmai National Park in Alaska in October of 2003 as a result of animal attacks. Treadwell was dubbed Grizzly Man, an eco-warrior who campaigned for the conservation of bears. He was also known for his unusual desire to live among them in the wild. Katmai National Park is home to roughly 3,000 Native American brown bears, and Treadwell filmed close-up encounters with several of them in the days before his death. Billy Fulton, an air taxi pilot who was scheduled to pick them up that day, arrived at the campsite and found it to be empty. He noticed a bear lingering nearby and immediately contacted the park rangers. Suspected the worst when they were forced to shoot dead a large and aggressive male grizzly in the area. Rangers found remains of Treadwell and Huguenard torn apart and partially consumed by the bear. Reviewing audio captured by a video camera that had been running during the attack, it was speculated that the bear first approached the tent at night and attacked Treadwell. Huguenard tried to fend it off with a frying pan but was driven away. In her distress, Huguenard's screams may have sounded like that of a smaller animal of prey, which prompted the bear to hunt her too. Timothy had mentioned in the film footage that there was one bear with whom he did not feel entirely comfortable. Despite this, he refused to carry bear spray or weapons. In his documentary Grizzly Man, Werner Herzog suggests the same bear Treadwell captured footage of a few hours before his death maybe have been the one that killed him. In February 2010, in what is called a rare case among animal attacks, an experienced trainer was killed by whale at SeaWorld in Orlando, Florida. According to witnesses, 40-year-old Dawn Brancho was performing a normal routine in the pool when it all went wrong. The witness accounts vary. Some allege that the killer whale dragged her into the pool by her arm, others believe she fell in, and some say she was pulled by her ponytail. 12,000-pound whale named Tilikum had been with the park since 1992 and was known to be a temperamental and possessive animal. Minutes prior to the attack were caught on a tourist's video camera, but official footage from SeaWorld surveillance cameras was not released to the public. Once she was in his grip, Tilikum apparently swung Brancho around in his mouth, causing a broken jaw, fractured vertebra, and a dislocated knee and elbow. He was then pulled under the water and drowned. SeaWorld employees distracted Tilikum and finally coaxed him to another smaller pool. The autopsy report determined that alongside her broken bones, Brancho's arm had been severed and part of her scalp had been forcibly torn off. The incident caused public outcry over the confinement of animals at SeaWorld. Experts in the field stated that killer whales and other predators are innately aggressive. Being in captivity can cause them additional stress, which may have contributed to Brancho's death, but ultimately their behavior with humans in such close proximity can't be predicted. 7. Olga Moskalova. In August 2011, 19-year-old Olga Moskalova and her stepfather, Igor Tsiganenkov, were killed in one of the most horrifying animal attacks ever, in a remote area of East Siberia. The pair had been fishing by a river and was attacked when they returned to the spot to retrieve a fishing rod. The bear first overpowered her stepfather, breaking his neck and crushing his skull. Young woman tried to flee but was unable to outrun the bear. She managed to call her mother on her mobile phone while the attack was taking place. During this phone call, Moskalova screamed, "Mom, the bear is eating me. Mom, it's such agony. Mom, help." Her mother initially thought it must be a joke, but realized the truth of what was happening when she heard the sounds of the bear growling and chewing in the background. Bear summoned her 3 cubs, who began devouring the body while still alive. Her mother called the police and begged them to rush to the scene, but it was too late. Found the badly mauled bodies of Moskalova and her stepfather. Suggested that the increase in bear attacks on humans in this region was due to humans encroaching on their former habitats and a shortage of natural food sources in the area. Famous crocodile hunter was known for his up-close and personal approach to filming animals in the wild. This is the same man who spent his honeymoon trapping crocs with his new wife. Steve Irwin, who died owing to one of the most deadly animal attacks, had spent his career tangling with all manner of deadly creatures. Tragedy finally struck when Irwin was filming an underwater documentary near the Great Barrier Reef in Queensland, Australia on September of 2006. He approached a stingray that reacted defensively by striking him with the tail barb. Irwin initially thought it was just a punctured lung, but crew members quickly realized his injuries were serious. Immediately administered CPR and brought Steve to the shore, but it was discovered that the barb had pierced his heart. Shortly afterwards, he was pronounced dead by emergency personnel. The incident was captured on camera by his crew, but was destroyed by Queensland police to respect Irwin family's privacy. Irwin's death is among the most famous in this list of animal attacks. On Christmas Day in 2007, a 4-year-old tiger named Tatiana escaped her open-air enclosure and attacked 3 visitors shortly before closing time. The victims were all young men from San Jose, 17-year-old Carlos Souza and 2 brothers, Amrit Paul Dhaliwal and Kulber Dhaliwal. When the tiger leaped over the fence and pounced on Souza, the brothers ran to a nearby cafe. Employees in the cafe called emergency services amid panic and confusion, and security locked down the zoo to keep Tatiana from escaping. Paramedics arrived. Carlos Souza's body was found by the enclosure with a fatal cut to the jugular vein. The investigation later found many blunt force injuries to his head, neck and chest, skull and spinal fractures from the attack. Tatiana was still clinging to one of the other injured victims near the cafe. He was drawn away by police and shot and killed. It was noted by several bystanders and evidence found at the scene that the animal may have been provoked and assisted in her escape. Scott was killed one of the most disturbing animal attacks by a 4.5-meter long saltwater crocodile in the Northern Territory, Australia in June of 2014. Family was on a fishing trip and were moored in a calm billabong in their boat. According to witnesses, Scott was pulled from the boat and dragged under the surface. Family members tried calling out, but minutes later his body floated to the surface. His wife, Rosalind Scott, described the attack. "This thing just came up from behind the motor and grabbed him." Crocodile attacks had long been an issue in remote and impoverished areas along the Nile and Zimbabwe, but tourists and locals had become too complacent in Australian waters. Earlier in the year, a female backpacker was also killed by a crocodile in the Kakadu National Park while swimming in a billabong. Attacks brought about greater community awareness of the dangers. Crocodiles in the region can be bigger and heavier than fishing dinghies, and it is often difficult to see them. Therefore, individuals should take extra care when delving into waterways where they may be present. In the words of Police Chief Brody from Jaws, "If you want to go fishing in croc-infested waters, you're gonna need a bigger boat." August 5 of 2011, a party of British schoolboys on an adventure holiday in Svalbard, Norway, were attacked by a polar bear. Earlier in the week, the group had come across bear footprints in the snow and excitedly taken photographs, but thought nothing further. Despite a makeshift tripwire system at the party's camp, 17-year-old Horatio Chappell was dragged from his tent and mauled to death by a polar bear in one of the craziest animal attacks. According to witnesses, he fought aggressively but was overpowered. One witness stated that he saw the bear rear up and slam itself down on Horatio. Other people were injured by the bear before it was shot dead with a rifle. An inquest found that the defenses at the camp weren't up to scratch and the camp leaders didn't have sufficient training in using the firearm. The bear was found to be in poor health and on the verge of starvation, which probably contributed to its aggression. Swedish zookeeper, who was not identified by name, was attacked by a pack of 8 wolves she had raised since they were pups. The female worked for Kalmarden Zoo and colleagues reported that she always followed standard zoo safety procedures. 17th of June 2012, she entered their enclosure and notified staff as per protocol. When staff attempted to contact her by radio a short time later, she failed to answer and they went to check on her. was victim to one of the most disturbing animal attacks. Sadly, they found her remains in the enclosure, surrounded by the pack of wolves. Emergency workers had trouble gaining access, and local papers reported that staff was forced to sedate the wolves to remove her body. Reports show no obvious reason for the attack, and in the wild they generally fear and avoid people. However, wolves are sophisticated predators who are more likely to launch an unprovoked attack when habituated. In June 2009, 2-year-old Cheyenne Hare was killed by her parents' pet python in Florida in one of the most deadly animal attacks ever. An 8.5-foot Burmese python had escaped from her aquarium and slithered into the toddler's crib during the night. Anna was bitten on her head and torso and strangled. Her mother had taken a sedative and was oblivious to her daughter's struggles in the room next door. Jason Darnell, Cheyenne's stepfather, discovered the child the next morning with gypsy still wrapped around her head. Darnell stabbed the reptile until he was able to pry it off and called 911. Sobbing to the dispatcher, he said, "The baby's dead. Our stupid snake got out in the middle of the night and strangled the baby." Couple were later charged with manslaughter by culpable negligence. Wildlife authorities also said the snake was not properly secured and not registered as required by state law.